born in 1791 in the mountains of North Carolina. This is the remarkable, true story of a man who lived until 1907 for a staggering 115 years and lived in 3 different centuries through historic events such as the Lewis and Clark Expedition, the War of 1812, the Trail of Tears, the Mexican-American War, the Civil War, and the Spanish-American War. And during his lifetime, he saw some of the greatest inventions ever discovered: the telegraph, steamboats, the railroad, electricity, and the automobile. Yet, he never embraced any of it. Instead, he lived for over 100 years in the same log cabin with little more than his trusty flint rifle, watching the entire world go by while never buttoning his shirt more than twice during his entire lifetime. Prepare yourself for the incredible, true story of Uncle Fed. Fed Messer was born in 1791 on the South Fork of the Catawba River in Lincoln County, North Carolina, during a time when Western Carolina was still an unexplored wilderness inhabited by Cherokees. Fed's father was a Revolutionary War soldier, and for his services, he was awarded a land grant in a place called Dutch Cove along the Pigeon River in what is now Haywood County, North Carolina. Yet, at the time, Haywood County didn't exist, but by the time Fed was 5, his father moved the family, and just like that, they were among the first white people to ever settle these mountains, for a time living side by side among the Cherokees. As a young boy, Fed loved to roam the mountains. Barefooted and shirtless, he learned to hunt and fish, helping his father build their homestead and tend their crops. And back then, every wild animal known to mankind still called these mountains home, except for the bison, which had been killed off or driven out by the whites in order to move the natives out of the area. However, the trails that the large bison carved out through the hills and the hollers remained. And as Fed grew, he used these trails to explore all the surrounding mountains until he knew the area as well as the animals themselves. And by the time he was a teen, Fed was a master tracker and bear hunter, spending weeks at a time in the woods with his faithful hunting dogs. Using his father's rifle from the war, he became an expert marksman. And, as he would later say, every time he squeezed the trigger, you could rest assured that his target would be laying on the ground when the smoke cleared. Because when you only had one shot, you had to make it count. Now, he could track an animal for miles using nothing more than his God-given instincts. It was during one of these hunts that Fed had one of the most memorable events of his life. The teenage boy and his 2 dogs were out early in the morning. The sun hadn't even peeked over the eastern ridges yet, so the forest was still covered in shadows. And as Fed walked the edge of a thicket, his dogs jumped a rabbit, who ran into the clearing. Wasting no time, Fed leveled his rifle and pulled the trigger. Yet in that moment, his dogs began crying out and burst out of the thicket, and before the smoke even cleared, a panther, as black as the night sky, emerged from the thicket and pounced on one of the dogs, gashing the dog's stomach open with his razor-sharp claws. The second dog tried to attack the panther from the rear, but the wild beast spun around and was on the dog in an instant. It had all happened so fast, Fed didn't even have time to reload his musket, since a wild animal would surely kill his dogs before he could. So Fed ran at the panther, holding his musket by the barrel and swinging its stock like an axe. He landed a crushing blow on the panther's back, which caused the animal to momentarily retreat, before the beast turned its full attention to Fed, and then he lunged at the boy's throat. And as the cat was still in the air, Fed closed his eyes, and mustering all his might, he swung the stock of his rifle like a bat at the wild animal, hitting him in the skull and killing him graveyard dead as the panther's body crashed into Fed.
Hey guys, JD Phillips here from the Appalachian Storyteller. Today, I'm going to be giving away my brand new book for free. Stick around to find out how to enter. And now, back to the story.
Both his dogs were critically injured in the battle, and Fed took the panther home and cooked it, feeding it to his dogs for the next 2 weeks until they slowly recovered. Stories like this made Fed Messer a legend in Haywood County, North Carolina. Locals would see him twice a year when he walked 11 miles down the mountain to Waynesville to trade in his animal hides for staples. They all called him Uncle Fed, and for more than 100 years, Uncle Fed hunted and traded for a living. Now, while he never once had a dollar to his name, he'd never wasted a single minute of his life chasing one either. Uncle Fed lived in solitude on the Pigeon River for nearly 115 years, oblivious to the outside world events, with all its endless wars, the Trail of Tears, and countless inventions. He only learned news of the outside world on his semi-annual trips down the mountain, where he saw a train for the first time, electric lights, and even horseless wagons that could push themselves that folks called automobiles. But Uncle Fed wanted no part of it. Instead, he embraced a simple life, living with nature. In 1901, a reporter made the 11-mile trek up the mountain and took these pictures of Fed. And for the first time, the man who lived during 3 different centuries was interviewed. When the reporter arrived, he found the old man still living in the same cabin that he had built 100 years earlier. The home was a double-roomed log cabin with walls of hewn logs that still bore the marks of the axe. The floors were loose, heavy planks with a chimney made out of rock gathered from the hillsides and streams. The doors to the cabin were hung on by hickory thongs, since hinges were unknown to the architect, and the chinks between the walls were once filled with clay and straw during its early years, but most of them were now open, allowing the wind to rush in and out as if it were tearing through a latticed barn. Heck, a half-grown boy could crawl through some of those holes. For furniture, he had an old spinning and weaving tool, and just a couple of split-bottom chairs. This was a house that Uncle Fed had once raised 9 children in, along with his wife, who by now were all dearly departed. The reporter found the 109-year-old man sitting in front of his fireplace, resting a leg that he had injured while chopping firewood a few days earlier. When a log split and hit his leg, the old man wore a beard that was several days old. His face was hardened by the years of life, but he still had a gentleness in his clear blue eyes. The reporter introduced himself and offered Uncle Fed a pint of whiskey as a gift, to which the old man quickly put it to his lips, smacking about a tablespoon down before remarking, "Well, that's plumb good. Did you bring any backer?" Just like that, the two engaged in an hours-long interview about the old man's life. And although he couldn't read or write, Uncle Fed quoted scripture from the Bible with remarkable accuracy. He talked about George Washington and the day he died when he was a kid, about all his years of hunting and being chased by black bears and bucks. And when asked why his shirt was always unbuttoned, he replied, "Well, I ain't buttoned it up but twice in my whole life. The first time was when I got married, and they made me fasten it at the top and tied a handkerchief around my neck. But as soon as I got foot loose, I tore that blasted thing off. The other time is when I was hunting, and it was freezing all day. It was so cold that you could spit, and it would freeze before it hit the ground. So I buttoned it up for the second time and the last time that day." Even at 109 years old, Uncle Fed was in great shape and still walked the 22-mile round trip down and up the mountain twice a year to get supplies, even though it took him 3 days. And he was still known to dance a jig in the cabin and to even swim in the Pigeon River. When asked what his secret was to a long life, he replied, "Child, I've taken a dram of whiskey before breakfast for 90-odd years. It takes the flashes off my stomach, but I never drink it more than that because I learned early on that it affects the way you see life, and I've chewed bacca ever since I was a boy. And other than that, I spend as much time outside with the animals and the trees. We're all made of this earth, you know, and the closer you keep yourself to it, the better off you'll be." As the reporter prepared to leave, he asked the old man one last question. "Uncle Fed, you've never rode on a train or in a car. You've never even made a phone call or had electricity. But let me ask you something. Of all the inventions that mankind has invented during your life, which one has had the greatest impact on you?" And to that, Uncle Fed replied, "Well, the last time I was down in Waynesville, I went down to the general store to eat some supper. And afterwards, a lady gave me something that cooled my insides all the way down, I tell you, plumb to my toes. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever felt. So I asked her, 'Hey, say, missus, what was that cold sauce that you just gave me after I finished my meal?' And then she replied, 'Why, Uncle Fed, don't you know that's called ice cream?' And I said, 'It is. Well, next time, give it to me first. Ain't no sense in waiting till later for something that good.'" Uncle Fed Messer, the legendary bear hunter and tracker, who lived for 3 centuries, died in 1907 at 115 years old, and is buried in Waynesville, North Carolina.
What an incredible story, and what an incredible life. 115 years on this planet. Now, I'd like to clarify something. As I was researching this story, I found lots of newspaper articles that said that he was actually 114 years old. And there were some that said he was at least 114. And then later on they said he was 115. So the reason for that is they actually found his birth certificate years later, and it was proven that he was in fact 115 years old. Well, my friends, like I promised earlier, we're going to be giving away a free book today. All you got to do is just go down in the comments below and tell me where you're watching this video from, and we'll enter you in the drawing. And in about 2 days, I'll go ahead and pick a winner, and I'll send you this book for free. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.